Happy Friday, everybody, and welcome to another handsome episode of your favorite Mad Men podcast, Made Man. Couple quick show notes. Yesterday was August 1st, the 1 year anniversary of Made Man. It was 1 year ago today that I put up my first episode, watched the first episode of Mad Men, and today I just watched episode 2 of season 5, Tea Leaves, or The Tea Leaves. I don't remember already. Now, in actuality, it's technically episode 3, but I'm going by Netflix rules. The first episode was a two-parter, so I'm combining that as one episode as Netflix did. And going forward, if the episode numbers are off, it's because of Netflix. Blame them. And one other thing, you may notice my voice is smooth and sultry this evening. A deep voice really made for public radio or Mad Men podcasts. And the reason for that is I did something very un-Mad Men yesterday. I went to a heavy metal concert. I saw a British heavy metal band by the name of Iron Maiden. Now, very unrelated to Mad Men. They're my favorite band of all time, and this is my 10th time seeing them in concert. I actually do a podcast about Iron Maiden as well, not weekly, and definitely not as frequently. Now, last week, I missed Friday night. I couldn't get the episode up until Saturday morning. Then I screwed up. It was a two-parter, and I accidentally put the second part first and the first part second. I switched it, fixed it, so hopefully most of you got it the correct way. But this week, it's a one-parter. This is the only episode. This is the only half. There's no second part. So I'm ready to talk about Tea Leaves, and I have to tell you, I already forget how the episode starts. I know everything that happened, but it's like, wait, what happened when? I cannot believe it. I think our episode starts with, "Oh, fat Betty, bam-a-lam, whoa, fat Betty, bam-a-lam, fat Betty." Okay, that's awful to say, but I was at work once, and a coworker said to me, "Have you got to Fat Betty yet?" And I said to her, "No, I haven't got to yet." And she just laughed. She goes, "Well, let me know when you get there." And I had no idea about this. I was like, "No, a spoiler. What are they talking about? That can't be right." And I just that there's a old song called "Oh, Black Betty" by Eminem. So that is the first thing that popped in my head. Awful. I'm a terrible person. I don't care. I thought it was funny. And this just came out of the blue because we did not see Betty at all at the beginning of the last episode. We saw the kids for a second. We saw their giant new home. They got dropped outside, but we hadn't seen Betty at all. And all of a sudden, here she is. She can't fit into a dress. And believe me, if I'm out of order, you know at this point, the whole damn show is out of order. So let's just stay with Betty's story. Let's just go there and take it all the way through. And they crisscrosses with the other stories. But Betty put on some weight. And, you know, it's weird because, like, you can only do weight gain, fat suits, whatever you want to call it. You can only do it so well. And I feel like this was like part digital. I don't know if it was digital special effects yet, but part, like, prosthetic pieces, physical effects, and I'm guessing, I feel like there was some digitizing to smooth things out. I don't know if that's just me. But it's like, at some points it looks realistic, some points it looks tacked on, it looks like she's wearing something. And that's only because you know her one way and all of a sudden you see her another way. So I wonder if I never saw the actress and I just saw this character, would I think that? And I like to think that I would, because I always feel like I have an okay eye for that kind of stuff. I don't know. And then I'm thinking to myself, what if I'm being really horrible, and I don't have a good eye at all. And what's her name? I can't remember her name. Put weight on, but I'm almost positive that's not the case. So the kids, New Bobby and Sally, are trying to squeeze her into a dress, and it's just not working. Henry Francis, I think I can do a better Henry Francis now that my voice is down a little bit. Betty, Mrs. Francis, but you got to have a real New York accent. I know it's not good. So Henry comes in. He's like, we got to go. The governor or whoever is. We got to go to this thing or whatever. I really don't know what it was. I just know he had to go to something. And she's like, I cannot go. She put herself in bed. She goes, it's a women thing. I don't feel very good. And she had to decline. Maybe it had to do with his mother. I don't know. I literally watch these shows, and I podcast about these shows, and I give you nonsense. Sometimes I'm so backwards that I give you the wrong episode first. But you could see that, she obviously gained weight, and I don't know if it affected Henry. Henry seemed to be, for the most part, a good guy most of this episode. Then at the end, I thought he was a dick, and he's now on my shit list as far as the show is concerned. He may come back, but he's on the list, and I will get there. We'll get there. But Henry doesn't make a big deal about it. No problem. Then Henry's mother, comes to visit, and the kids are out. She's just home watching TV. And the mother basically calls it, and says, listen, Henry doesn't like when you're not able to come to those things. He misses you there. And I understand how it is. You get lazy, you get comfortable, and it just kind of gets out of control. She's basically saying, I know how it is. You ate too much and you put on some weight. And she's like, listen, there's things you can do. You're a young girl. You can bounce back, and you can go on diet pills. So Betty's mother-in-law is telling her to go on diet pills to lose weight to make her husband happy, the husband who's not complaining about it at all, because this mother is pretty much a garbage person. And Betty called her out and says, why don't you take the diet pills? Because this woman had a big head herself. And believe me, I'm no skinny guy. I try. I'm trying. I run. But usually I run straight to the milkshake store. I don't know. That doesn't make any sense. I just love having this deep voice. I call it concert voice. I have it for a day or two. And then it's gone. Then I'm back up here. Hi, everyone. But Betty does go to see a doctor. And, I love seeing doctors smoke. I love seeing doctors talk down to women. I mean, I don't love it, but it's just, you know what I mean. It's like so... like with the time, and he's like, all right, here's what's going on here. Hey, how you doing? He shushes her while she's talking at one point. He sees the doctor, and the doctor, oh my God, I'm so yawning. Oh, I'm so professional. The doctor says, Betty says, can you maybe put me on a diet pill? I put on some weight, and I just need some help getting a kickstart. And the doctor's like, well, I'm not going to put you on a diet pill without giving you an examination. She's like, well, my friend told me that, it would work. And he's like, is your friend a doctor? No. So he's like, all right, let's do a little examination. Go, check this, check that. And then boom, he feels something on her neck. Ooh, yawning. He feels something on the thyroid. There's a lump. Next thing we know, Betty runs home. She's in the house, this giant, Addams Family looking house. And she's like, Henry. And Henry's nowhere to be seen. So what's the first thing she does? She calls into Don Draper's office. Mr. Draper, there is Mrs. Francis on the phone with you. He's like, Bets, what's up? She kind of panics and tells him, there's a lump. I don't know what it is. They found a lump. He's freaking out, and she says to him, tell me what you always tell me. And he's like, it's going to be okay. You could see there's still a relationship there. Whew. Enough of a relationship that somebody gets a little jealous. Jealous. There's a song about that by a Jonas Brother. I can't think of it right now, but it's a hip song. The kids love it. So Betty, Dawn just kind of talks her down. Then later on, we see Betty in a bathtub, and Henry comes in, and at this point, Henry already knows, and he's like, you got to see a specialist or something like that. And I think she wanted to put it off. He's like, I talked to someone, they can get you in tomorrow. She's like, tomorrow? Because it's Betty. And he gets her into the specialist. So Betty gets taken in, and Betty runs into a friend of hers, which I have to tell you, if we've seen her before, I do not remember her. And I'm not this person who, like you may have watched Mad Men weekly. Oh, wait, I watch it weekly. Never mind. But sometimes you'll watch, and then you have to wait a year. I watch it every week. I've never missed a week. I've missed a Friday, but I've never missed a week. Look, I missed a Friday, man. I'm sorry. So if we've seen this character before, as one of her friends, I just don't recognize her. But they start small talking, and it was really weird because Betty's like, what are you doing here? I'm like, I'm thinking to myself, Betty, you dummy. Sorry, I don't mean to say that, but she just rubs me the wrong way. The woman is like, well, I'm getting treatment. And you can see she looked a little sickly. And she goes, Betty Draper. Oh, I'm Mrs. Francis now. I'm married. I'm remarried. My husband's name is Henry, too. She's married to Hank. And I was like, is there a Hank? I don't remember a Hank. It's bad enough having Harry and Henry, and I have to think of those names every time I say them. But the woman talks her into going to lunch. Betty's still kind of trying to figure out what's, she doesn't know what's going on, but she's fearing the worst. And she goes to lunch with this woman, and they just have like this really kind of emotional talk about this woman dealing with cancer and having to kind of imagine, basically this woman thinks we should have just told the kids I got hit by a car instead of having to draw this out. So this woman just assumes she's going to die, which is depressing as all hell. And she's been coming there for treatment for a while. The kids don't even know what's really happening. This yawning is the most unprofessional thing the podcast could do, and I don't care, baby. That's Made Men. We hit record and we let it rip. So, where were we? Well, we see Betty a little bit here and there. Like, we see her celebrating 4th of July with the kids, the sparklers, and the kids are having fun. But in the back of her mind, I think Betty's, like, freaking out. We see her have a dream where everyone's dressed in black. They're all eating one pancake. And Henry just keeps saying, if. Maybe let me do it in Henry's voice. If. I don't know if that was very good. There's the mother there. Nobody's paying attention to Betty while she's in the room. Sally takes a chair, puts it on the table like Betty's spot is taken. Kind of a dream about death. Look, I would, like, television dreams are the best. Like, I had a dream the other day that I think there was like some sort of adventure I was going to be on, or like I skipped bail and then I knew the guy who was trying to catch me, and that was it. I was like living in a movie almost, or like just nonsense where I'm afraid that I still have this dream where I have gone to school and a whole year's gone by and I forgot to study or test or anything. I have that dream all the time, but. And maybe it means something, I don't know. But I've never had a dream so prophetic and so symbolic. Oh, this chair means you're no longer here. I don't know if I'm overthinking it, but I just love television dreams. Now, the nice thing is, Betty gets a call later. She's on the phone. She's like, yep, okay, yep, very good. Sounds good. Oh, I jumped the gun. So when Betty was in the bathtub, she didn't want Henry to look at her when she got out of bed, when she got out of the bathtub. She's embarrassed by herself. Later on, when they're in bed, they do finally make sweet love. And I think Henry's been waiting, and Betty was finally ready to do it with him. And those are just little things I wanted to mention. I don't know why. But later she gets the call, and it turns out that the lump is benign, no cancer. And now she's like, oh, great. That just means I'm fat. That's the most important thing to her. When she had a mother, remember the mother was like, she used to say her mother would really treat her like crap. And then she was crappy to Sally. And now look at you, Betty. Now look what's happened to you. You don't have cancer. Maybe there's something with your thyroid or whatever. But sorry, girl. So the episode, towards the end of the episode, we see Sally Draper. And we see Betty Draper and Sally Draper having ice cream together. And, Betty finished hers. Sally's eating hers, and she's like, all right, I'm done. I'm full. Can I go play? Yeah, go play. And then Betty's like, all right, I'm going to finish your ice cream as well. Yum, 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 yum. I think that's how the episode ended. But anyway, that's just Betty's story. Shall we go back to... Let's go all the way back. And Don Draper, because now there's two Dons. Don Draper, let's go through his story. He is waking up with his wife, Megan. Megan? Right, yeah, Jesus. I'm so bad at this. I'm great at this, and thank you for listening. You're smart for choosing us. Me. So they wake up, they're getting ready to go do something, and Don's like, oh, my God, I'm completely stupid. Now I remember. So we see Megan's speaking French to her mother. I wanted to say Mogier, but I don't know what the mother's name is, or how to say mother in French. So Betty is on the phone with her mother. Don's trying to get ready, running around, getting ready. They're both getting ready. And I said Betty. Oh, my God, slip of the tongue. Megan is talking to her mother in French. And, side note, my niece and nephew went to Quebec, my brother and his family. And they speak French up there. So I told my niece and nephew, they are 7 and almost 9. And I was like, remember, now I want to teach you to say hello in French to them. You say, oui, oui, boo, doo, caca. And I don't, like, at first they weren't really paying attention, so I said it a couple times. These kids are smart enough that they look at me and they know that I'm an idiot. They laugh at me and they're like, Uncle. But the other day they kind of said wee poo poo to me. I don't think they did it in Canada. I kind of wish they did, and it all would have come back to me, and I would have been the bad guy, but it would have been hilarious, so it would have been worth it. Luckily, these kids are too smart for me. Anyway, she's speaking French. She hands the phone to Don, and Don's like, bonjour. And he doesn't know what she's saying. I think they're going to meet or something like that. I don't know, but they're rushing out to go get dinner. They're going to meet the Heinz people, and Don is, they're ready to get dinner. And if I'm saying this wrong, if I'm out of order, I can't believe it. I just watched this friggin' episode, and I'm like totally thrown for a loop. I took my dog out once, but between the episode, but really it doesn't. That's not a worthy excuse. So they're meeting with the Heinz people. They got a meeting with them. It's the guy and his wife and Don and Megan. And, just small talk. They try not to talk about work, but it comes up. And somehow Megan awkwardly says, oh, how did you meet? Oh, we met through work. Don was divorced. Like, in other words, we weren't together first. He had a girlfriend, but he didn't have a wife. And the woman's like, oh, none of my business. And, they're smooth talking to him. And he starts talking about his daughter being home all the time. This is the guy from Heinz. And how all he loves is the Rolling Stones. And they have this song. The song is like, time is on your side. And Megan corrects it. It's on my side. And he's like, oh, yes, it is. And he's like, I just thought, wouldn't it be great if you could get them to do a commercial that said, Heinz is on my side. And Don's like, well, that's not how it works. We could make a call. He's like, yeah, that'd be great. So he puts a call in. They get a note. They get kind of at least they get to do a face-to-face, or so they're told. The Rolling Stones are playing in, someplace. I don't know where it was. It was at Madison Square Garden. So they're going, I don't know, wherever it was. They're going to get Harry, because he's the commercial man, and Don, and really, Don doesn't want anything to do with this. It seems like Harry was like, we could go grab dinner first, and Don's like, nope. He's like, okay, I'll pick you up at 7:30, or you pick me up at 7:30. I've already eaten. But you see, Harry was trying to impress Don. That was pretty funny. Don was like, nope, I don't want to eat with you. Sorry. They end up going to the hotel, and not the hotel, to where the concert's going to be, and they're just waiting around. They're notoriously late, so it's like they're just waiting. They end up meeting these two young women and talking, and they're just kind of like talking. Harry is like, he's a little younger than Don, and he's completely like thrown for a loop by these young women. He starts smoking some weed with them, and one of the women's like, come on, I can get you backstage. He's like, all right. He goes off with them, and the other girl ends up just staying with Don, and they talk a little flirty maybe, like she takes off his tie, says loosen up, but it was a weird thing. It was like, a couple seasons ago, I was like, Don, who cares if Don has a wife at home? He's going to take this young gal, and he's going to bed her. He shall bed thee. And it didn't happen here. Instead, to me, it seemed like Don saw her as a young woman, as someone like not too much older than his own daughter. Maybe like eight years older or something like that, but really not that much older. He never got, he smiled. He talked, but he never got he didn't get inappropriate with her. She took off the tie and flirted, put it on. He just took it back. I thought it was really interesting how he kind of, I don't know if he evolved. I don't know if it's because he really respects his new situation and his new wife, or if he just really likes his new wife. So why would he be a jerk? He didn't like his old wife. I don't know if that's what it is, but I thought I was pretty impressed. And at one point, Harry runs out and he's like, I did it. I signed them. And he has a piece of paper in his hand. And then all the women are like, the Rolling Stones are here. And they rush in the other direction. And Harry's like, what? And it turns out Harry had signed some other band. He's like, they sounded so much like them. They even sang to me. It was like the Trade Winds or something like that, which they're a real, I looked it up. I think that's what they were called. The band I looked up, they're a real band. I think they're American. So I don't know if they just they just kind of screwed with Harry. But he's like, what are we going to tell? Later they're getting, it looks like they were getting a White Castle because Harry was high. He had the munchies. He ate like 19, 20 burgers. You could see he didn't really want to go home. He was supposed to be on a diet. You could see he was kind of like thrown for a loop. He's like, all those women were having so much fun. And they're getting high. And Don's like, you're high. Like, you're not missing out. But it seemed like Harry was like, what am I doing missing out on this shit? And a lot of stuff happened in this episode. Later on, Harry, that was kind of the end, I think, for Harry. Harry just, he went home for the night. They failed. Like, what are we going to tell Hines? He's like, we tell him that we couldn't get Rolling Stones. We're still trying, or, whatever. The Rolling Stones are not Hines material, I believe is what he said. So while this was going on, Don was also dealing with the fact that he knows about Betty. And at first he didn't tell Megan. And then the night after the Rolling Stones, he was exhausted. She wanted to go out to Fire Island. I think it must be the 4th of July because the kids, Sally and Bobby, had sparklers. Or as we like to say around here, sparklers. So she wanted to go out to Fire Island. He did not really want to go at first. And he's like, you're 26 years old. And I think he was trying to say that, you're going to go with your friends. All your friends are so young. What am I going to have in common with them? But the truth was he was kind of felt like he shouldn't be doing anything. And he told her about Betty. Because before she said, what did Betty want? He goes, I don't know. He blew it off. He goes, I don't know what she wanted. And then he tells her the truth. They found a lump. She might be sick. And Megan's like, why didn't you tell me? She goes, I didn't want to worry you. I didn't want you to... I didn't want you to have to think about it or think anything. Megan's like, well, what do you think? I'd be happy about this? Of course, she starts saying, I love Sally and all these things. Like, Megan's doing the right thing, saying, obviously, we take the kids. These are your kids, and I'll do everything I can. But Don's like, don't even think like that. Don't even think like that. She finally says, there's nothing you can do, and she talks him into going off, having a great day with him. Now, we don't see any of that. But later on, they, towards the end of the episode, a lot of stuff happens. We'll get there. And Don tells Roger, you know what? We'll get to that later. Let's go back into the office. And it turns out that after doing some great work, Roger and Pete secured Mohawk Air into coming back. So everyone's excited about that. And Pete's like, Roger, you need to be. They want you to be the day-to-day guy on this. You are the, they really like you. And really, Pete is just setting Roger up. And Roger's all excited. Roger meets with them. Roger takes them out to lunch. Roger drinks too much. And Roger promised them their own copywriter. They need a copywriter. We need a copywriter. Boom, 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 boom. So he puts Peggy in charge. Well, Peggy's like, great, I can get a new copywriter. They're like, no, you need to hire someone. They need a penis. And Peggy's like, I'll work on that. Peggy had some great one-liners, some great comeback. You can see she's just confident around these men now, and I love it. He goes, find a handsome version of Don. She's like, he goes, that'll be easy, and she walked off. And she interviews, she looks through some resumes and some portfolios. This one's too thick. This one's too thin. This one, had the same Volkswagen kind of idea that they have used. And then they see one that it said, judge not lest ye be judged, and had some good stuff in it. They liked it. Both her and Stan. I remember his name now. It's Stan. That's the cocky creative guy that she works with, who's kind of a jerk, but also kind of a nice guy too. It's weird. And he's like, you don't want to deal with this guy. She goes, no, he's the only good one. He goes, all right. He's like, don't you realize they're going to replace you? She goes, I like to work with creative people. He thought she should stand up for it, and she's like, no, this is what they want. I'll give them what they want. What you really, really want. I wanna really, really, really want to zig ha. I just broke into Spice Girls. I don't know where the hell that came from. So she brings in this guy, Michael. I want to say Michael Ginsberg is the last name, I believe. Yes, because they reference Allen Ginsberg. And this guy was very neurotic and very, he was very outspoken. He was a little inappropriate. And I recognize the actor. I didn't know he was in Mad Men, except when I saw pictures later on. I was like, oh, this guy's in there. He's on that show Superstore right now. I know him from, I've probably seen him in other things, but I've seen him in Silicon Valley. It's funny that, again, another actor where most people see these other shows and go, that's the guy from Mad Men. I'm watching Mad Men second, and I'm like, oh, that's the guy from these shows that happened later. So I remember seeing pictures of him in Mad Men, or looking up, animated GIFs. So he must be part of the show for at least a little while longer. But he's going for the job, and Peggy was kind of, he kept saying, when am I going to meet Dawn? Who he thought of her as just the secretary, the girl. Before he gets to meet Dawn, he wants to meet Dawn. It's all about meeting Dawn. And Peggy, was just about to blow him off. He kind of sweet-talked his way back into at least meeting more. But she wasn't really sure about it. Later on, Roger was like, you got to hire this guy. I demand you to hire this guy. He was kind of, I order you to hire this guy. We need him. Everybody's neurotic. Everyone's a jerk. We got to get this guy in here. This is what they want. And he was jokingly saying you got to order it. It was some good conversation between him and Peggy. So they later bring this guy back to, and then Don, oh my God. So Roger said I promised them a Jewish guy. We already, this time we'll hire him on purpose, And what he was doing, he was motioning to Don has a black woman as his secretary, also named Dawn. And if you remember from the last episode, there was, they put out that letter. Everyone kind of freaked about the cigarette, they put out the ad about, we keep our windows shut and being wet.
And in other words, we support black people, African American people. I don't know if that was even a term then, but whatever. You know what I'm saying? We support. They saw that as a sign of solidarity. That's why all those people showed up. And it looks like when they took the resumes, they found Dawn and they hired her. And it probably was out of guilt, but hopefully she just does good. She seemed like she was doing a fine job. And Harry made a comment like, both Dawns, I don't know how we're going to be able to tell you apart. And then you can tell he looked at her and thought, oh, wait, you're black, he's white. You could see it in his head that he was like, oh, wait, did I say something racist? I didn't mean to do something like that. At least that's how I saw it, just the awkwardness in his face. Roger was like, said something about Dawn, and he goes, that's going to be confusing. He's like, what? She was the most qualified. But, of course, Roger said that racist thing later, and sort of anti-Semitic thing. But anyway, they bring this guy in. He meets with Dawn. He says some of the right things. He talks about the letter and how the letter. He refers to it as the letter, and people know what it means. He'd love to work with them. He would do anything to work there. He thinks this place is on the up and rising. He wants to be part of it. He was very weird. He's looking out the window, like kneeling on the couch later on. But Peggy says, you got the job. He's all excited. Then we see this character's going to be someone, because we see him go home. He goes into this little apartment. He's living with his dad, and the dad gives him like a Hebrew blessing. You could tell he was a little embarrassed by it, but he was like, come on, let's just make dinner. But the dad seemed really loving. So kind of cool. This guy got the job he wanted, and he seems to be really creative, and it'll be interesting to see what happens with all of that. Now, I was talking about the Mohawk Air. Pete was all excited. It was Pete, Lane, and Roger when they were talking about it at first. Then Roger, made the connections, got this copyright guy in there. And then Pete brings everybody into the main lobby. He goes, I want to show you just how, small this place will seem, or some kind of thematic thing where he's like, we've re-signed Mohawk Air, and he takes a cloth off a thing, and there's a little airplane there, basically saying Mohawk is back. They've re-signed with us. Great. He goes, I brought them back in. I hired a copywriter. Even though Roger is the one who said hire the copywriter, Peggy's the one who hired the copywriter. Old Pete Campbell is the friggin' guy who's taking credit for it. And of course, he says, of course, Roger will be handling the day-to-day, but I'll see everything that's going on. He undermined Roger in front of everybody. Everyone's clapping. I don't know if everyone got it. Roger got it right away, and he just cold stared him, walked off. Dawn saw it too, walked off to check on Roger. And Roger was like fuming. He's like the little punk. He goes, he looked at Peggy. He goes, I lied before. This is the last guy I've ever hired. Basically, Pete's the last guy he hired. He can see the writing on the wall that his timing is towards an end. He said something about Pete because I helped that kid into a swing. I pulled his arm up and put him on a swing, and I thought, wait, did he? No, Pete's dad was not in advertising. Pete's parents did not like advertising. I think that was more of a symbolic thing. At first I thought, wait, was Pete like a kid around these people too? But I don't think so. I think that was all symbolic. And Roger's like, Don was like, it was, it was disrespectful. But, what the frig was that? I'm outside in the dark and something just flew over. I don't know if it was a bat or it was probably just a dragonfly, but the shadow it made was immense. It was like Mothra. So Don was like, it's disrespectful that he did that. And he said, and you could see Don, something was on his mind. And he said, Betty's got cancer. Now, we already know. I already said it, and we already know as the audience that Betty does not have cancer. Betty's tumor or the lump was benign. So Don's like, Roger's like, really? Huh. She goes, well, I don't know. I don't know for sure. She's getting some tests back. So, okay, so at least he said that. And then Roger said, well, that would take care of things. Like, if she was gone, that would make things a little easier. I was like, oh, my God. Jesus Christ, Roger. He goes, I just think of the kids not having a mother anymore. And, Megan would try, but... And Don's like, Roger's like, oh, the whole life-death thing, I'm done with it. In other words, I guess he's thinking himself old, and he's just trying not to think about it anymore. God, the acting on this show is friggin' so good. So good. Roger, you could see him be happy, drunk, pissed, broken down, undermined, and then be a prick and a pervert, and you love him no matter what, because the guy does it. John Slattery does it so friggin' good. And the same with Don. You know, you can't help but root for this guy. You want him to win. You want him to succeed, and yet he's not. He's so flawed, and it's unbelievable. But maybe we saw some growth in him today, by the fact that he didn't sleep with the girl at the concert. So, you know, Roger's like, "Do you want me to make the call?" And Don's like, "No, I got to do it. I'll do it." So he calls back to the house, and Henry Francis answers, and he's like, "Henry Francis," because that's how he answers the phone. "Henry Francis, Henry, it's Don." "Oh, hello, Don. What can I do with you?" "I wanted to call to see how if there's anything new with Betty." And Henry's like, "Oh, I didn't know you. She's fine, Don. She's out of the woods." He's like, "Oh, great. That's great." He goes, "Anyway, we got supper on the table." He's, "Okay, I'll let you go." Hangs up on him. And then Betty goes, "Henry, who was it?" "It was nobody." So this jealous prick thinks it's so bad that Betty called Don to tell him she was sick, and that Don called Betty to check on how she was doing. Henry, you jackass. These people have kids together. They have 3 kids that you're raising. You idiot. If anything ever happened to Betty, do you think you're going to keep those kids? Those kids go to the dad. And the fact that, if something was happening, if she was sick, if she had to be taken to doctors all the time, if the kids needed to be covered for and cared for, the father's going to step in, you jerk. So, Henry Francis, as I said, Henry Francis, I'm not going to say your duck level for letting a dog go loose, but your dick level for being a dick, I just, I saw that and I was like, oh, nope, sorry, Henry. Don ain't great, and I know you're jealous, and there's some weird, I uttered these words today while watching this episode. I said, oh my God, Betty and Don are going to get back together, aren't they? I just, for some reason, that moment where Betty called Don calmed her down. You could see they still cared for each other, even though Don was a shit to her, even though, he was not a great husband to her at all. You could see there was something still there. We saw it when they sold the house and they had a glass of wine together, or a glass of liquor or whatever. They shared a drink, and Don was like, "I got married," or he said, "I met someone and we got." Is that when he said I got married? I forget. It's kind of crazy. Yeah, he got married at the end of the season, right? I'm thrown. I watch these shows back to back to back to back every week. You get thrown for a loop. But there was kind of a little connection there where Betty was like, oh. You could almost see because she didn't really care for Henry Francis that much, I think. I'm not sure how much she likes this dude. He came in when she was very vulnerable. She had a crappy husband treating her like crap. And he was like, Betty, I will treat you so much better. And Betty was like, oh, really? I like that. And now she wasn't loving it. When the whole thing with Carla went on and moving, then she got heavy. She could see she's just, I don't know if it's depression. I don't know what it is. But there was some kind of the way that she had to talk to Don. To me, just thought, wait a second. The way they just spoke to each other, it's like, oh my God. They're going to get back together. I don't know anything. I kind of hope they don't. Don's got Megan. And Betty has got Henry. They're perfectly fine. They have their lives. The kids are used to it now. Don't screw this up again. I don't want it to happen. But it just popped in my head. And the fact that Henry Francis is so jealous to think these things too, when they have kids, pissed me off. Pissed me off. Megan's like, oh, no. And Henry's like, I'm not going to tell you who the father of your children was on the phone. It's like, screw you, Henry Francis. Screw you. That, my friends, I think I've covered everything that happened in this episode. This was just a regular Mad Men episode. And yet I feel like, wow, I've talked for 40 minutes. I mean, this is almost as long as the two-parter. But I feel like the two-parter, there was some moments that were just easy to talk about, light and kind of, you could get through it pretty quick. This, a lot happened here. A lot. And I loved it. And I'm sure I missed out on some things. I know I skipped some things, but, I got the gist of it, kids. So, I want to thank you for listening. I want to thank you for sticking with me. I want to thank you for not punishing me for being a day late. I appreciate it. And I appreciate you. And this is the time. Now, I don't know how it's going to sound because I have my deeper voice because of the concert. But I'm going to try. And I think it might actually sound, like, sexier than usual. We'll find out. But I'm going to go down. I'm going to go very down into the coolest announcer voice I could think of. And I want to thank you for coming along with me on this adventure. You could choose any Mad Men podcast, but you choose mine. My friends, you can find me on Twitter at MadeManPod. Made Man? What's that? My friends, that's me. I am going on a journey of every Mad Men season, episode, and I podcast about it every week. And that is the journey. I'm rambling now. That is the journey I take, and I want to thank you. I can't do it. I sound like I don't know what, I feel like I'm going to hurt my vocal cords, but here we go. I'm just going to go for it. I want to thank you for coming along with me. I'm going to start laughing on this adventure as I strive to achieve the status of Made Man. Mosquitoes are eating my ankles alive. I need to go back in the house.
Fans not experts.